here from Detroit. Let's head down right now. Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Detroit. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Jacob Van Lunen, and we're just giddy because we get to cover an absolute blockbuster of a feature match here in the early round of Day 2 at GP Detroit. We've got the Peach Garden Oath. You see them on the left. Owen Turtenwald, William Jensen, and Reed Duke facing off against Ben Stark, Luis Scott Vargas, and Eric Froelich on the other side of the table. This is team sealed. These are brand new decks that they just built mere moments ago. And we get to watch some of the best players in the game's history battle across 3 matches here. This is awesome, JVL.
This is very exciting.
We just couldn't set up something better than this, right?
I think, if we had drawn it up ourselves,
right,
it might have not looked this good.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we might have screwed it up.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's happened so far this game, it's already pretty exciting.
Yeah, why don't you get us caught up here?
All right, so a Goblin Glory Chaser on turn 1 from Huey was answered by a Relic Seeker from Luis, and then Fiery Impulse allowed Huey to get in with the Goblin Glory Chaser, and when that guy gets in on turn 2, suddenly you have a 2/2 menace that you only spent 1 mana for, and a lot of the time that thing will end up doing 12 points on its own and then eat up, a 4, 3, 5 mana removal spell. And this is just not where Luis wants to be. Of course, he's got a good racing position himself now, especially with that Claustrophobia on the Acolyte of the Inferno. Yeah,
Acolyte of the Inferno was a nice follow-up there for Jensen, as it was going to threaten to deal a lot of damage and be difficult to interact with in combat. But the Claustrophobia, locking it down, takes that out of the equation and simultaneously puts a counter on the Blessed Spirits, and Luis is going to attack for 3. I think he may leave it back this time, depending on what his hand looks like here, though. As Mage Ring Bully was added to the battlefield. Never mind. He's rumbling. Stratus Walk hits.
Is he going to rumble? I don't know. I mean, that's a huge board now on Huey's side of the table.
Doesn't he have to? Doesn't Stratus Walk say you can only block creatures with flying?
I don't believe it does. No.
Let me look. At any rate, it looks like the wide one. So it says, when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. It has flying, and it says enchanted creature can block only creatures with flying. So what is going on here?
I assumed that it must not say that based on him not attacking.
do you yeah, and I mean, I've played that card, so I'm like, I know that. The thing is, Luis knows that too. Wow, there's a Stratus Walk for you. What if he has Disperse for his Stratus Walk in mid-combat here? Because this is such a weird play.
That would be the sickest.
This is such a weird play to me. Oh, now here's an interesting one. Alchemist Vial for Jensen. This is just a super interesting sequence here because these players know what Stratus Walk does.
Yeah, so he would attempt to disperse the Stratus Walk, thus having a 5/5 or 4/4 blocker. But then Alchemist Vial takes that out of the equation.
It would have, and Luis did nothing.
Yeah, that's the thing is he's not going to go for the disperse with Vial on the table.
I guess not. I mean, you kind of want to make him do it, right? All right. Well, Blessed Spirit's going to get in there.
I mean, if your opponent plays all those 1s and 2s, it's hard to assume they have another 2.
I'll be honest, I just have no idea what's going on at this point with this sequence. This was a very strange line here. But there's a Sentinel of the Eternal Watch on the battlefield now, and that does threaten to help keep things down, though Luis has now attacked.
Yeah, so maybe he didn't have... I guess, well, he's going to tap out for the Sentinel on turn 6 regardless. Yeah, a lot of damage there.
Yeah, I mean, this one's going to be over very quickly in Huey Jensen's favor.
Unless there's something like Tragic Arrogance.
Yeah. No, that was it. Did Luis just miss it?
I think he just missed it.
Is that where we're at with it? Because I can't figure out another line that makes sense there otherwise. Because I like drawing a card there, right? I mean, you need to get things flowing, but you need to be able to block with your Blessed Spirits, especially if you're not going to attack with it.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So game one, in any case, goes to Huey Jensen. And it looks like on our near table, Reed Duke has won his game against Eric Froelich. So 2 to the Peach Garden Oath right away. And we're going to check in on Owen Turtenwald versus Ben Stark here. Ben's going to play Eyeblight Assassin. You know, defensively, he's looking to block a Topin Freeblade here, most likely, though. We will note, this is game one. Ooh, there's a Fleshbag Marauder.
Yeah, and that's kind of nice. Now he gets in there, gets that Renown trigger.
Get rid of the pesky Assassin. Look at the graveyards, though. There's been some tussles here. This is not... These are not the first plays of the game for these opponents, or for these players.
Yeah, that is actually the second Topin Freeblade for Owen Turnwald.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, he's also... I believe he played an Infernal Scarring. I see that in his graveyard.
Yeah, that is right. Weighted the Underworld as well. It looks like it took out a Nantuko Husk, and then a Skyraker Giant probably traded for something. All right, well, back to business here for Ben Stark. He plays 2 2/2s this time. Maybe looking to block a Topin Freeblade. I can see that Owen Turtenwald's hand is lands in a Macabre Waltz. He's got one other card in there. What is it? Is that what is that?
I can't really see what it is.
Quite see it.
I think it's just another land.
It's just another land. So it's Swamp Plains Macabre Waltz.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so
he's
he
just
can
going to
waltz
pass
if
a
he
turn.
wants to,
Yeah, he
but-
can waltz and discard a land, but he decides not to. He could get Topin Freeblade Fleshbag Marauder back.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad,
No.
but he decided to wait.
It would allow him to keep attacking too.
This is a super fun spot here too, because the Mage Ring Bully must attack, but it has prowess. So the question is, does Owen want to snap off a block here? I think he actually does.
Oh, absolutely. I think, you know, worst case scenario, your opponent trades with you, and it's not like he can use a removal spell on another one of your creatures.
Exactly.
And then, you know, just get a 2 for 2.
Do you think that's why he didn't Macabre Waltz this
I
turn?
think that is why he didn't Macabre Waltz, which is a very high level play.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been hard to not do that in his seat because it would have allowed him to keep attacking. I mean, he's ahead by such a huge amount of life.
All right, Active Treason is the play from Stark here, though, which actually is going to trigger prowess. So he's actually getting in for 8.
Yeah, that's a big attack.
It is a nice swing, but it's not going to look as pretty on the other end. Now, does he have a Husk?
I guess he only
No.
attacked for 6 there.
Oh, he did not send in. Sorry, yeah,
Yeah,
you're
he's-
right. He didn't send the Assassin in there, just the Bully, which must attack and the Freeblade. Okay. So he got in for 6, but he's left back enough blockers to double block the Freeblade here. Looks like Owen continues to flood.
All right, so the Macabre Waltz is still very strong. I mean, it represents a removal spell in Fleshbag Marauder, which is pretty bad now that there's a Thopter. But
Yeah, good point. But he doesn't want to do nothing for 2 turns in a row. And the Mage Ring Bully play still is there for him if he wants it.
I mean, if he had sent the Topin Freeblade, then he probably would have gotten a double block with the Gearcrafter and the Thopter, and then it would have given more value to the Fleshbag Marauder, and then he could have played the Macabre Waltz afterward, perhaps. But I like this line from Owen.
Whoa, what is this? Oh, Ravaging plays. And, you know, thanks to the...
Did the Active Treason turn it on? Or
it does not. So he doesn't
Okay.
actually get damage in for it, but Rumble mode, and he does get, of course, a trigger with his Mage Ring Bully. And, you know, what we've seen here is Owen Turtenwald run out of steam, right?
Yeah.
Even the Macabre Waltz, which you think, oh, that's not a bad game, late game play. It's a 2-for-1 in this case. You know, he got 2 spells back into his hand, 2 creatures, but they weren't that good, right? It was a Topin Freeblade here on turn 10 or whatever, and a Fleshbag Marauder against a pretty well-developed board. So,
yeah, I really like the combination of Fleshbag Marauder with Macabre Waltz, but it's frustrating when you're trying to set that up and that's your plan, and then your opponent draws a card like Gearcrafter, It just ruins everything.
Yeah, sure does. And now Topin Freeblade's blocking an Eyeblight Assassin, and that's 3, 4, 5, 6 damage, so half of his life total dropping away here. What was that off the top of
I believe it was a Blightcaster.
Yeah. That's not going to do much here either. I mean, it blocks. That's actually okay. A 2/3 is actually pretty good here.
Yeah, 2/3 is not the worst.
No. And he can even use the Fleshbag Marauder to maybe
take out the flyer.
Yeah, although it looks like he's not going to do that. He's going to play Blightcaster and pass.
Yeah, I think that gives him more of a chance of winning. I mean,
agree.
it's kind of rough to spend 3 mana in a card to just deal with your opponent's Thopter.
Dragon Fodder is going to trigger that pesky bully again.
Yeah, that thing keeps getting in there.
3 in a row. This is lethal here if he wants to swing with the team, but the Blightcaster does get to just eat the Gearcrafter, so he's not going to do that.
It's basically a free block, because here I imagine Owen's not going to block anyway.
Right. That's what I'm thinking, too.
So
he gets in for 4, puts him to 2, and then has an easy attack with everything next turn to finish him off.
And going to 2 here is rough, because Ben's board is wide enough where it's going to be rough. I think that what type of cards could he draw in succession to win a game like this? I think Languish is important.
Yeah, Languish is what comes to mind. He could have, what's it called, Tragic Arrogance to leave Ben with just a Goblin.
And just another Blightcaster, though, and that's it's not going to be good enough.
And that signals to me that Owen has given up on this game. He won't concede because he's going to make Ben go for it, but Ben is going to go for it, and there it is. So Ben Stark wins his game. Yesterday in the team sealed portion, Ben went undefeated. He was 9-0 in his matches, with purportedly the worst deck of the bunch.
Yeah, I mean, Ben's ability to go 9-0 with seemingly unplayable decks is like one of the untold stories of the Grand Prix circuit. I don't know if you remember that blue-green deck with the Garruk that only had like 4 creatures.
Yes, I totally do.
He 9-0'd with that.
It's really funny. You know what's really funny? Owen Turtenwald is also somebody who can rattle off wins with junky pools. You know,
both of them are masters at that. So here they are fighting each other.
Yeah.
Scrapyard heroes.
All right, so let's jump back down to Reed Duke versus Eric Froelich. There's Reed attacking right there, and Farika's Disciple is immediately going to jump in front of the Rock Maulers, which was Renown. So that's going to soak up 3 of the 6, but he's still taking 4 damage total in the sequence. Leaf Gilder's the follow-up. Not that bad for Efro, but we do see that there's a Foundry of the Consuls on the battlefield, so that's pretty clearly what Reed's plan is for this turn anyway. Oh, really? Nissa's Revelation, Eric?
Ooh.
Okay. Let's spin the wheel. I think I just saw Conclave Naturalist, which has to be one of the best targets for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gain 4, draw 4, and you get to stack your deck. So Nissa's Revelation says, scry 5. Not a bad opening sentence,
that's,
right?
That's pretty good.
And then after you scry, he's going to reveal the top card of his library if it's a creature. He's going to draw cards equal to its power and gain life equal to its toughness. So it's 4/4. So this is pretty close to Sphinx's Revelation here, right? It costs 7 mana. He's drawing 4. It's just that it also has Scry 5 attached to it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So a huge swing in the late portion of this game here for Eric. As you know, Reed looks to be in a reasonable spot, cracking this Foundry of the Consuls on end step here, and having a couple of creatures on the board. But you got to figure that Eric's going to be able to turn this back around pretty quickly, especially given that we know one of the cards was Conclave Naturalist, which can take out a Thopter.
Yeah. Actually begs the question, if you're Reed, does that affect your decision of whether or not you're going to pop the Foundry that turn? Is it just too important to your tempo to do so?
Probably. He kind of committed to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, he left over the mana specifically to do that.
Yeah. He also gets in for 5 here.
If he has nothing else in his hand, I guess there's an argument, but...
Is this Naturalist of his own? Yeah, it's a May ability. And Eric says, yep, no problem. So Eric's at 10. His life total is not high. There's cards like Draga Invocation. Oh, Languish from Froelich. Oh, man, that's dirty.
That is a good one.
Jeez. And he's got Llanowar Empath. Well, okay, he's going to save the Empath, but he's got Dwynen's Elite. and a Dead Bridge Shaman with Empath still in hand, and the Conclave Naturalist too. Yuck!
That's so nice.
That is brutal.
Dead Bridge Shaman has impressed me a lot in this format.
Agree. Here, Reed manages to play around it.
Yeah, but having no cards in his hand.
Not the way you really want to play around it. There's Lanimore Empath for Eric Froelich, who looks firmly in the driver's seat. I think he saw Read the Bones land.
This is difficult because Read the Bones is kind of exactly the kind of card you want to draw.
Yeah.
Right? But then at the same time, you're
free, but next turn, ripping a Read the Bones is pretty nice.
Yeah, and he's going to go ahead and leave that on top.
Yeah. Reveals Reed to Reed. Crunches for 3. And he's got enough for the Naturalist as just a beatdown card. And, you know, it's tempting to hold cards like that in your hand until you have a target. But when your opponent doesn't have any cards in hand, you need to just get him dead.
Yeah.
Ooh, Rock Maulers. That's a nice one for Duke. It's probably too late.
It looks
at
to
this
be a little
point.
too late.
It does look to be a little too late, but that is not the worst top deck you could see. Wow, and he just finds Spell, another Naturalist, and something. And the obligatory, let me take a look at your graveyard before this game's over, check here from Reed Duke, because it looks like Eric is going to take this one down. Reed won game 1 very quickly. We didn't get to see it.
And this game has been going on for quite a while, too. I mean, there's
this
a
one
Sky Snare Spider in Eric's graveyard. There's
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, I see an Unholy Hunger there in the yard for Duke. So, in fact, I see 2 of them. Wow, so this has been a real game here. The breaker was the Nissa's Revelation.
Yeah, the
he hit
Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, in this case, it was the Green Sphinx's Revelation, except for with Scry on.
Yeah, he got to put a card on the bottom. Well, I don't want to draw that one.
In the meantime, the game ends. So Eric Froelich evens things up there off the back of a very timely Nissa's Revelation, and we're going to get a game 3 between those two. Why don't we jump to the middle table here where we've got Luis Scott Vargas trying to equal things up against Huey Jensen. It was a weird first game, but it looks like this one has developed a lot more. Perhaps, well, it's funny. I was going to say maybe not the Goblin Glory Chaser start, but he's got it.
He's got it.
It's just that it looks like Luis has been able to stabilize here. Oh, yes, in a big way. Sentinel of the Eternal Watch sitting on the battlefield.
It's a pretty nice one. And the fact that it has Vigilance, it just keeps chunking away at the opponent while it's just this defensive powerhouse.
Yeah, this is really interesting. The graveyards really tell the story here. Mono red for Huey, and look at the graveyard. He's got 5 cards in the yard, and just it looks like just 1 there for Luis because all of his are still in the battlefield. And he has turned the corner here and looks to be taking control of this game from Jensen. So the Acolyte got tapped by the Sentinel. That wasn't attacking. I know it looked like it, but that's not what happened there. Sigil Starfish on end step is going to scry something to the bottom. Topin Freeblade off the top for Scott Vargas. He's looking to equalize here as well. Ben Stark won his game 1, but he was the only one. Suppression Bonds on the Goblin. Uh-oh, I sense a big attack incoming here. I think Luis is going to try to shut the door on this game in a couple of turns if he can. Or at least start forcing some chump blocks where realistically Huey's not going to be able to come back from that kind of thing.
And I like that Luis is holding up like that many blockers at this point, even though he's so far ahead, because you really don't want to die to some like out of the blue card. Like Exquisite Firecraft is a card, even if he has negate. Playing against these red decks in this format, it's dangerous.
Great point. Another card that we've seen do quite a bit of damage is Ravaging Blaze as a finisher.
Yeah.
You know, and right now Huey can blaze for 5. And he's got Dragon Fodder and Fiery Impulse and even a Titan Strike to turn it on as well. So, and then cards like this, right? Little haste creatures pop up, and you know, and
they come through, and then
yeah. And the thing is that you know, Scott Vargas has set this up very cleanly to be a lethal attack this turn, and it's going to force real action from Jensen here.
And I think the game's just over. I don't know.
Oh wow, he just drew Hixes.
Ooh,
nice deck, Luis.
Very nice deck.
Yeah, first striking Knight of the White Orchid is going to get into the red zone as well.
Yeah, the attack is just as good as the block here.
Indeed. Yeah, that's a good way to put that, right?
Mhm.
Since Jensen's forced to chump anyway.
You see how all the cards are numbered? Luis has the Michael Jordan 23.
Oh, I see that. Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Nice.
It's lucky.
44 for Jensen. Michael Cage. Perhaps a little narrow a reference there.
And again, recognizing the first strike led him to realize, oh, this knight could be attacking just as well as it's blocking. And then he thought, oh, well, so could the Void Mage. This will just force the onus.
Yeah, I like this.
Huey only has mountains in play.
Also, Luis is likely to have multiple spells in hand after using his Sigiled Starfish for multiple turns in a row. Take 2, but you're going to lose, or take 3, excuse me, but you're going to lose most of your board. Dead, 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 dead. That guy's still on bonds. The Berserker's still alive, and so is the Acolyte. But remember, one of these is going to get tapped down. And Luis just gets to sit back.
Yep.
And in comes the Berserker. Luis is just going to block with the Sentinel here. And that is going to do it. So we're going to get a game 3 there as well. And this one is shaping up awesome. Big smiles there from everybody. They're all having fun. These guys, of course, all very close. You know, they run in the same circles. They're all close friends with each other as well. They've all been on testing teams together in different eras. Obviously, they all want to walk away the winner of this particular feature matches. This is really one for the ages here.
This is a good one to win.
All right, so let's jump back over to Owen Turnwald and see how he's doing on making it 3 game 3s.
Looks like he's doing a pretty decent job here.
Blessed Spirits as a 4/4 attacker here. Wow. Now we see why the Infernal Scarring's there. There's also a Grasp of the Hieromancer, but it looks like Turnwald is playing defense here. He's got kind of a super stalwart Aven there that attacks quite nicely, but didn't here. He's leaving it back, assuming it's on blocking duty for, well, any of the creatures really from Stark.
And the reason he only attacks the Blessed Spirits there is because next turn he still has a lethal attack with the Aven and the Blessed Spirits. It really doesn't make a difference. And having that 5/5 on defense is really just going to prevent Ben from doing basically anything unless he has a trick.
And it wasn't lethal anyway this turn.
Yeah, it wasn't lethal anyway, and it will be lethal anyway next turn. So no reason to put yourself at risk in a situation like that.
How the heck is Ben going to find his way out of this mess?
Well, no, it doesn't look like he has much to interact either. I mean, his graveyard's empty. If he had had a removal spell, I imagine he would have been using it on a 4/4 flyer or a 5/5 flyer that has a Grasp of a Hieromancer on it.
What if he has Active Treason?
Active Treason's an interesting one. I mean, he takes the 5/5, he can tap the other guy. Oh, he just wins if he has Active Treason, right?
Probably. I don't know. Turnwald's at 10. He can tap the other one, so that's 5. The Tomb is not active, but that's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Pretty easily, even through a removal spell. You know, like a Celestial Flare or whatever. Another option that we have to consider here for future turns, you know, going back to Turnwald's line, is that if Stark can get rid of the Grasp of the Hieromancer or the creature on it, he does have Skyraker Giant.
Yeah, and I mean, Skyraker Giant
didn't trade off last turn.
Yeah, and that's like a really interesting play there. I mean, it's odd that he would be playing around something like, you know, a Mighty Leap or an Enshrouding Mist that's in this stage of the game. But it leads me to believe that he has something that we're not necessarily privy to. All right. So in comes the trio here. Mage Ring, Bully, Angel's Tomb, and then Tuco House.
So the Bully must attack.
Yeah.
The Tomb should attack. The chances of it blocking are basically nothing. You need a flash creature or something weird like that.
Mm-hmm. And the Husk.
The Husk might as well get in there too, right?
I mean, it's going to put the pressure on. The thing is, the Husk has to be blocked, basically, because if it's not blocked...
Dead.
Yeah, you win. So Husk is a nice one to send to the red zone there, especially when your opponent's only ground guy is Doofy Return Centaur, who I love, by the way.
You love Return Centaur?
Yeah.
That's your guy?
I mean, in like green-black grindy-ish decks.
All right, now this gets interesting. Check this out. Turnwald is going to block the Husk here.
And I like this if he has a card like Enshrouding Mist in his hand as the last card in his hand.
Because this does mean that the Blessed Spirits can be traded with the Skyraker Giant next turn, since the Grasp of the Hieromancer could go away here potentially.
Yeah, now what's cool about this is that, you know, it forces Ben to sacrifice 2 creatures to the Husk, and then if Owen has Enshrouding Mist, then Owen can use that and then force Ben to sacrifice another creature and still keep his Aven. But it looks like he's not going to go with that.
Is Ben thinking about Celestial Flare here?
25 minutes left around, guys.
Probably with that full attack. I mean, I think the card you'd most likely want to sacrifice is...
The Bully? Or?
Well, at this point, if you're playing against Celestial Flare, you just sacrifice the Tomb because it's going to just get eaten anyway.
If these are the blocks.
If these are the blocks, yeah.
Yeah, because Turtenwald has not locked in blocks yet. He's still kind of experimenting here.
And Celestial Flare, not great against decks that have red or blue in them in this format. Those decks have the ability to produce Thopters, and just generally speaking, like, you're not going to have many situations where you're able to cast Celestial Flare and get more than just a 1/1. So it's an interesting card because in many formats that has been a first pickable, very powerful card. In this format, it actually underplays quite a bit.
All right, here we go. Sack, and it works. Now he's going to get a card out of the deal, thanks to an Infernal Scarring. But it looks like Ben has equalized here, right? I mean, he's got a backup Thopter, and he's got a Skyraker Giant that can trade for the Blessed Spirits right now. Because this did not look good for Ben last turn.
No, not at all.
And all of a sudden, it feels like Ben's ahead. Right?
Yeah.
I'm seeing this right? Like,
you are seeing
Ben's
this right. Like,
crazy.
I'm very surprised by how this is played out. Is that an Auramancer in Owen's hand?
Yes, and it's 2 planes.
So can't...
Does Grasp do something here?
Grasp makes it into a 5/5, 6/6, and then taps down the guy. Yeah,
and then
he
just chumps with the Thopter.
He can chump with the Thopter.
So that doesn't win, though.
It does not win. Yeah, the Thopter changes the math too much.
Oh, man. That Gearcrafter did serious work here. So he's going to make him chump with the Giant. This is lethal, right?
This is a lethal attack,
yeah,
yes.
5/5 plus the 1/1. So Ben Stark either needs to win this turn, or he needs to deal with the Blessed Spirits in some way.
Yeah, you could play another flyer, find a removal spell.
Yeah, he's got options here. If he steals the Spirits, that does not activate the Tomb. And since Turtenwald's at 7, it would not be lethal. He needs something else.
Well, no, the Thopter and the Spirits together is lethal.
Oh, it's 5/5, right. So that actually is totally... Oh, and he's stealing it.
Yep.
Here he goes.
So 7. 7 in the air.
7 in the air. 5/5 Spirits, +1/+1 from Grasp, plus the Thopter. And Ben Stark steals not only a creature, but the match.
Yeah, very, very good.
Wow, that was
there.
insane.
Treasonous victory, or Hall of Famer Ben Stark there.
Super close. And Ben now is going to check in on his teammates. You know, Ben told me he's a little bit more of the dialed-in type player when he's playing. He's not the one that's leaning over people's shoulders and suggesting stuff. Oh, wow. This one could be bad for Luis Scott Vargas, as Huey Jensen just had a big turn where he exquisite firecrafted away a Sentinel of the Eternal Watch, one of the best cards. It does look like... Oh, it's just a Warhorn. All right, so Ramroller is 5 power when it attacks.
It is
and Huey's out of cards.
A juggernaut, if you will.
It's an actual juggernaut. Wow, he built the juggernaut. Good call. So this is a huge turn, right? I mean, Scott Vargas has a Sigiled Starfish. He did not use it on upkeep. He did use it on end step, and he needs to restabilize this board. It's not that hard. He has 1 creature to deal with. Any removal spell does it. And then he's got Jensen on no cards in hand.
Yeah, it looks like he's got a lot of cards in hand, so the world may be his oyster at this
he
point.
just passed the turn back, which means he might have Celestial Flare here. I think if you're Jensen, you're thinking
he might have Hixus.
Oh, he might have Hixus. He does. You also saw that Ben Stark, you saw his hand come in and point at something. So it looks like Scott Vargas is going to take the damage and use Hixus' ability. He also could have blocked and just traded. It's more conservative, but it keeps his life total higher. Mm-hmm. Now he goes down to 5. But he's got a Hixus in play, so that's clearly better, right? Because now he gets to start chunking away at Jensen's life total. And he's going to go back up to 8 thanks to the Aven Battle Priest. We saw that last time as well. as you know, he recognized how aggressive Huey Jensen's being here.
Enthralling Victor, stealing a Starfish, takes a gander, hands some Starfish back. I like the flavor of
That's
that. Like,
great.
get a Starfish.
It's like a boomerang Starfish. It always comes back. This is now an upkeep activation, though, for Scott Vargas, who looks like he's turned the corner here. The aggro deck seems to have just ran out of gas right as we came into the field of view here. But you never know. Oh, there's another 2 life. Wow, that's so brutal, because the reason I was saying you never know are cards like Ravaging Blaze and things like that can kind of, you get in for just 1 hit and then you steal the game. But Luis has gained 5 life since we've come onto the table here.
Yeah, even Battle Priest doing a lot of work here for Luis.
Absolutely.
Cleric of the Forward Order. Just tons of cards that are good against this aggressive red type of strategy. And that's the thing about a format like Team Sealed, is that everybody wants to make sure that their deck has a good post-board configuration against the most aggressive decks, especially on the good teams. You know, when you're playing just on what have you team, you may just think, oh, we just need to build 3 decks. But there are always going to be at least 1 or 2 really aggressive strategies on the opponent's team. So you want each of those decks to have a really good sideboard plan to beat aggro decks. And you hear it all the time where people are like, oh, I had this awesome aggressive deck. My opponent played all these Cleric of the Forward Orders. You know, they had Recluses. They had the whole 9 yards. And if you build your sealed pool correctly and give everybody enough of that stuff, then post-board, you're just going to be a monster against those aggressive strategies. And that's one of the major edges that these big teams have.
Yeah, we've seen that time and time again too, Jake, that every 3-player team has an aggressive deck in it. It's usually red-white. That's what you usually see. This one's mono-red, which is kind of crazy, but
we've seen quite a bit of mono red actually this weekend.
More than you see in any other limited.
Oh, absolutely.
venue.
Yeah. And normally when we watch these team GPs that are limited, we're watching like multicolor formats. So you never really see these monocolor type of decks.
What is going on here, by the way? We went on our whole spiel, and they haven't actually done anything since.
Oh.
All right, it was a Fire Fiend Elemental. Ultimately, was the play there for Duke, or excuse me, for Jensen. With Owen Turtenwald watching on, and I see an update on the bottom.
Ooh,
Reduke won his match against Eric, so that means this is the one. If Luis wins this, then his team stays undefeated. If Huey Jensen can pull this victory out after a quick start, then his team will stay undefeated here. Who is going to do it? It looks like Scott Vargas is the one who's in the driver's seat, but after watching the game last night of Huey Jensen versus Mike Sigrist, never count Huey Jensen out of a game. Here he goes. Crunch, crunch, and remember, Warhorn also is going to make these 1 bigger. These are pretty easy blocks for Scott Vargas. He needs to take no damage. He's got lethal in the air with 5 power. This could be it. Activate Starfish before death. Put a card on the bottom. These trade. That dies. I stay at 10. Okay, here's a Gear Crafter now from Huey.
So here I think Luis stacks with everything. It's no longer just a Flyers game.
Only 2 blockers back. What does he risk by doing that? He's somehow...
he forces a chump with the Gear Crafter.
2 lands in hand, Jake. Even after using the Starfish multiple times, he has not been able to stock up his hand on sweet spells. So he actually has to consider what to do here. This is...
Yeah, I think you just send with everybody. It's really hard not to make this play if you're in Luis's seat.
He forces 2 chumps here?
Yes.
Yeah, you got to do it, right?
Yeah, you just put your opponent on an Enthralling Victor and 2 unknowns, which are likely lands based on the way the game is played out.
And you say, all right, you come up with 10 damage.
Yeah.
If you do, I will shake your hand.
Yeah, I mean,
because he's slated to take 4 damage here from the Warhorn plus Victor. So Huey would need to get in for 6 more somehow. Okay, Scott Vargas down to 6, and it's a Boggart Brute, and he's going to pass the turn back, and this should do it.
Yeah,
Luis just has an easy attack here. sends the team in, and that's it. We have our victor. Luis Scott Vargas, Eric Froelich, and Ben Stark stay undefeated against the Peach Garden Oath. It's hard to imagine a tougher team to play against, and you see handshakes all around for these players.
That was unbelievable.
That was a great match.
That was a really great
yeah,
match.
super fun.
And I mean, we got to see a lot of cool parts about this sealed format in particular too. You know, we got to see the green-black grindy deck. We got to see, you know, post-board options against aggressive strategies. Just tons of different stuff. Some really high-level back and forth between Ben Stark and Owen Turnwald too.
I got to figure out about that Stratuswalk. All right, that's going to do it for round 10 here from Detroit.